Hi, I'm Paul. This is Brett. We are here talking about Christian movie madness, which is really exciting.
Yes, it is.
We're coming to the end.
Yes, we're down to the famous four.
The famous four.
Yes.
Not final four.
Not final four, critically.
Not
Our
final
last four Christian movies competing for the title of greatest Christian movie of all time.
All time.
As decided
Based
by
on
our
your
voters.
votes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. This has been a really fun journey.
It has
through
been, yes.
The entire 64 movie bracket.
That's right. Yep.
That we've created. We have four divisions, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
That's right.
Tell us who the famous four are.
The famous four are Facing the Giants. They are our upset Cinderella team. They were a 12 seed originally, but they've made it all the way to the end.
Kendrick's Brothers
movie,
really?
Yes.
So.
Flywheel was the first, and then Facing the Giants was probably the first one, to your point, that really people connected with and really knew about broadly. So Facing the Giants is matched up against another famous four finalist, Passion of the Christ. It's a big one.
Yeah.
It's a big one. 2003, I think it came out.
2003, 2004.
Yep.
Yeah. So Mel Gibson,
Caviezel.
huge. It once was the biggest R-rated movie in all of history
for like
before.
20 years, I want to say.
Before Deadpool took it down, which seems weird.
Yeah.
But, so that's a really interesting clash.
It'll be an interesting match. So Facing the Giants, Passion of the Christ. Then on the other end, we have a classic, 1959's Ben-Hur.
One of my favorite classics.
The chariot scene is really cool.
Oh, so good.
And it's facing Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
And the Chronicles of Narnia, they have been a force within the bracket during the entire run.
They've been the juggernaut. Yeah, they have.
And The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe has just mopped the floor with every single.
It has every single matchup. So there were three Chronicles of Narnia movies that made the bracket, right? Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, and Voyage of the Dawn Treader. All three of those movies made it to our epic 8, right? To the last round.
Yeah.
So only The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe survived that last round. But every matchup it's been against, it's won by taking at least 75% of the vote.
Yeah.
75% of the vote has been low for it, honestly, in most of its matchups. So it's been pretty dominant.
Yeah, it's really an interesting contrast. That particular matchup, we've got two huge juggernauts in terms of, as Brett mentioned, all of our picks were sort of chosen through Box Office Mojo.
Yep.
What they determined was a faith-based movie and how much it won at the box office.
Yeah, that's how we seeded it.
And so you have Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which made something like $745 million at the box office, against Ben-Hur, which in 1959 earned a whopping $74.4 million, which, if you adjust for inflation, nearly $900 million.
Ooh.
So this is clearly a clash of heavyweights.
Yes.
And let's be honest, Ben-Hur won far more Oscars than Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
It did. Definitely a different era of movie making.
The other famous four matchup between Facing the Giants, which seems to be living up to its name. It's faced a lot of giants during its run, and now the most gigantic movie of them all, Passion of the Christ.
Passion of the Christ, right.
So that's going to be, it feels like the biggest underdog showdown in a bracket-oriented competition since Villanova beat Georgetown back in 1985.
Look at you. All right. That's a nice pull. At this point, I'm done doubting Facing the Giants. Because every matchup it's been against has been an upset, and it has just won fairly comfortably along the way. Not Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe numbers necessarily, but it's taken care of business against all of its matchups. You see the love that people have for the film. They're getting out there voting for it. It toppled the Jesus film.
Which is
as well,
huge,
which was a big upset. That was a number one seed in its division. Potentially the most viewed movie, certainly the most viewed Christian film of all time. Facing the Giants took it off its perch, and it has just continued rolling. It topped the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, another Chronicles of Narnia movie, in the last round too. So
if it
Facing
takes
the
on
Giants,
a Narnia movie, takes them down, that shows a lot of strength.
It's rolling right along. we talked about, Passion of the Christ has this really strong pedigree too. Very impactful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out.
You know, one thing that I noticed as we were looking at the famous four.
Yes.
3 of those movies. I've been talking how Christian movie making is getting better and better and better. This may actually undercut that argument a little bit, because when you think about 3 of those 4 movies, they were all made in the mid 2000s. So you've got Passion of the Christ, 2004, technically. Facing the Giants was 2006.
Somewhere around there.
Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 2005.
Yep. Well, you know, I think it speaks to maybe broadly now. If you look at the scope of Christian movies overall, I think that there has been a level that has been raised. Because if you went back to the early 2000s, I think you would say, oh man, there are some classics here. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Passion of the Christ, you know, the movies that you mentioned. But, you know, there are other movies of varying quality that I think we did see in our overall Christian movie madness bracket as well. That isn't to diminish any movies that people love. But I think that maybe the overall tide has risen in the Christian movie making space now, in terms of just resources and different things that can go into it now. But you did see some of the highest heights, at least according to our voting and our Christian movie bracket, happening around that early 2000s time.
It's pretty fascinating. Yeah. So when you look at the bracket as a whole, what has surprised you?
What has surprised me? I think that it has been interesting just to see around a certain time there has been a real boost for certain movies that people really connected with, right? So, I mean, we talked about the famous 4, but you had a movie like Soul Surfer, right, which came out, I think, in 2014, right? That movie did very, very well and was pushing deep into the bracket. You have a lot of Kendrick's Brothers movies as well.
Kendrick's Brothers, yes, there's a lot of love.
We
for
mentioned it
Kendrick's
before, but as the SEC was to this year's March Madness tournament, the Kendrick Brothers were to our tournament. They put in a lot of entries, and with good reason. They've made a lot of Christian movies that people have connected with. War Room, Courageous, Fireproof. In fact, Courageous actually almost snuck into the famous 4.
Almost took down Ben-Hur.
In the last round, Ben-Hur and Courageous was separated by 7 votes. So
as we were watching the voting, honestly, you were giving almost hour by hour. Because it was going back and forth. Sometimes Courageous was ahead. Sometimes Ben-Hur was ahead. It looked like there was just a teensy bit of separation toward the end, but not much.
It was like a great basketball game, right?
It really was.
You know, they talk about they have the lead changes. There was about 6 or 7 lead changes throughout the 5 days of voting for Ben-Hur and Courageous. So that was a great matchup to see.
So Kendrick's Brothers, if you're watching, you must be doing something.
Yeah, must be doing something right. Yeah, how about you? What did you see from the bracket that stuck out to you?
You know, I was interested to see the Kendrick's Brothers' strength. I was a little bit sad to see that the couple of VeggieTales that made the brackets didn't do a lot of.
Lost in the first round.
Oh, what a pickle.
Both of them.
I was expecting to see at least one of them push into potentially even the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
And a lot of my favorites, honestly, just didn't do that well. You know, Risen, I think, was knocked out in the round of 32.
Yep, second round. That was one I like as well.
I don't think Paul, the Apostle of Christ, made it too far either.
It went up against Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe pretty early. That's tough.
That's a hard ask.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's a very difficult thing to move on.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup. But you're right. Risen, Paul, Apostle of Christ. Yeah, those were definitely some very, very well-made movies that just went up against some beloved films, I think. Risen got knocked out by Sound of Freedom early on.
Oh, yeah. I remember shaking my head a little bit at that. No problem with the Sound of Freedom, but Risen and Sound of Freedom was actually just barely snuck in as a Christian movie by a mere technicality, right? It didn't have a lot of Christian content.
It was on the list.
Yeah, it was on the list, and that's how we chose.
And I do think, especially what we saw in the voting, it's pretty beloved by a Christian audience as well. It made it pretty deep deep in the bracket. It was a 2 seed, so that was expected to some degree. And it had a very tight matchup with Voyage of the Dawn Treader, actually, in, I think, the round of 16.
The other thing that interested me was there wasn't a lot of recency bias. We talked a lot about these mid-2000 movies that did really well, but a lot of the movies that were released like last year or the last couple of years didn't move on as far as I thought. I thought Best Christmas Pageant Ever, that had a chance to make a really strong run. The Forge, that had made a lot of money at the box office. I think it's one of the stronger Kendrick's Brothers movies that we've seen. Both of those lost a little bit sooner than I expected.
Yeah, there wasn't the recency bias that I think we might have been expecting. Maybe part of that, we had some matchups go against, you talked about Best Christmas Pageant Ever versus Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot, right? Those were 2 movies that kind of came out at the same time. So recency bias really didn't help that matchup much because one had to win. Best Christmas Pageant Ever did push a little bit deeper in the bracket. I think Courageous was actually the movie that overcame it. So you see maybe there's a little bit of nostalgia.
Yeah.
When we talk about these mid-2000s movies or some movies in the 2010s, people watched growing up that they really connected with. Maybe that was stronger than the recency bias than we thought. That we thought might trickle through the bracket.
Yeah. So as we bring this conversation to its close, any predictions that you have going forward? What do you expect might be the best Christian movie of all time?
Well, from the very beginning, I've been leaning Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It just feels like it's got the right combination of elements, and people love it, and it's based on a beloved story, right? There's a lot of good...
Lion.
Sure. Yeah.
That's
wardrobes. Yes. So it's very beloved, and I think it could do very, very well. And I think from what we've been seeing in terms of the voting, that really hasn't changed my opinion at all. It has been rolling through the bracket. So it will be interesting to see how it does in this matchup. If it does move on to the championship, how does that look there? Because you're getting into the tougher competition, really. And then on the other end, man, it's hard to doubt Facing the Giants, but man, Passion of the Christ for me was very impactful when I saw it. So it's hard for me to go against that. But if I had to pick an overall, I would lean The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, and I think that you, the voters, did a fantastic job of picking these movies. It's a fun, famous four to talk about.
Yes, so absolutely.
I will be very interested to see if Facing the Giants, which made something like $10 million at the box office, if it manages to take down the giant that is The Passion of the Christ. That'll be an interesting matchup for sure.
Potentially adding another one to the list. So voting is live now. So go to PluggedIn.com/Christian Movie Madness, and you can vote there. We'll have a link in the description below as well. But make your voice heard. Vote for your favorite movies. Facing the Giants versus Passion of the Christ. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe versus Ben-Hur. We want to hear what you think. Help us decide what really is the greatest Christian movie of all time.
Yeah, I am really super excited to find out what our users think. I am very, very excited. And be sure, if you care to, be sure to let us know if you would like to see more of this. This has been super fun over on our end. So if you'd like to see more of these type of movie brackets, what would you like to see us do? Christmas movies?
Maybe,
Potentially kids movies? Superhero movies? I'm just saying. Anyway, if you wanted to let us know what you'd like to see, we'd be happy to take that under consideration. And be sure to like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. We'd love to have you subscribe to this channel, get these notifications whenever we have new content, because we're doing more and more of these. And they're fun for us, and we hope they're fun for you.